lady friend. Got a minute? Welcome to the Women's Spotlight, Her Light, Her Story, a space where we celebrate women leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives who are showing up with courage, purpose, and authenticity. I'm your host, Tiffany Brown, and in each episode, we shine a light on her story, the real journey behind the titles, the challenges, and the victories. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you to Cassandra Williams. She is the CEO at Education Innovation 360. In our conversation, we're going to learn more about Cassandra's story and how she shines light on her life's purpose. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's step into the spotlight together with Cassandra Williams. How are you today, Cassandra? We're so glad
Hey,
you're here.
I'm super excited. I'm excited to be on your show. This is fun. I love this just opportunity to connect with like other ladies.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'm so excited again to be able to connect with you as well. So, we're going to get started by asking, who is Cassandra Williams beyond the titles and the roles?
Right? So I really say I'm a mother, educator, a cheerleader of other wins for other ladies. I'm just a everyday person that loves to just sit and chill and just enjoy reading a good book and education and trying to help change the world, right? That's what we all want to
Right.
do.
Right. Well, yeah. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about, since I hear you saying educator. So, do you mind telling us a little bit about your story as to how you became an
Sure.
educator?
Sure. So born and raised in Chicago, moved to Los Angeles, started my teaching career. I taught, I was a coach. I was, instructional coach. I was a teacher. And then we moved. You know how you do rock, paper, scissors to figure out whose career you're going to follow?
Uh-huh.
And so we followed my husband's career,
Okay.
leading us into Indiana. So I taught at the University of Kentucky and IUPUI at the university. I was a professor of Africana Studies as well, a chair of Africana Studies. And then, you go into this higher ed slash K-12 sector. And
Mm-hmm.
so I opened up two schools in the greater Indianapolis area. So going through my journey, I realized, man, there's some places that I can really find myself in supporting education,
Mm-hmm.
outside of education, but still, helping teachers really work well in the classrooms. So that's kind of my journey. And I feel like I've navigated both spaces, not only the K-12 sector, but higher ed as well. So.
Okay. Well, hearing you say all of that, that lets us hear, since we hear that you are a CEO, we know that you are on an entrepreneurial journey as well.
Yeah, so 6 years ago, I started Educational Innovation 360. My goal, when I opened those two schools, I realized as an instructional leader, it was difficult to do both. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't necessarily be, great with instruction and then run the school building at the same time. So my goal, I said, I wanted to be a hand for principals to where we can go in and kind of assess the situation and support their teachers for effective growth in the classroom. And so when I started this journey, it was a challenge, right? Trying to figure out something new, how to dive in to figure out the tech piece to it, because, it's teachers record their classroom and we support them.
Right.
But just trying to figure out what does this look like? And, at 40 years old, what does that even entail for a person at my age that are just diving into entrepreneurship? So it was a challenge, let me just say at the beginning.
Oh, yes, I definitely understand that. And I do thank you so much for sharing that. So, everyone woman leads in her own way. What's the heartbeat behind how you show up as a leader, whether that's in your home, your work, or your community? Because I know I've heard you, of course, talk about the different roles that you have. And we know as mothers, we're leaders as well. So, can you tell us a little bit about what shapes that for you, how you show up as a leader?
So, um, I tend to show up as a cheerleader at first. Anybody I support, I coach, whether it be principals, coaches, or teachers, it's always a cheerleader.
Mhm.
We are in the classrooms or we are in our spaces and we are in our bubble. So it's hard to get out of that space and, just tell people how great we are. And so I start by cheerleading their, accomplishments, like you are doing a great job. I'm so proud of you. Before we even go into kind of, hey, what are some things you want to try? What gets you excited at night? Or, what are some things that you're worried about? And so I always go into every situation as a cheerleader, as a supporter of, I know how hard education is. I know what the world is saying about us right now. So
Mhm.
let me help you on your journey. And I kind of do that in everything I do, whether I'm like even supporting my kids. I'm like, hey, honey, let's look at your accomplishments. You've done so much so far. So, that's how I show up in the world as a
Mhm.
cheerleader for everybody who's doing the hard thing every day. And I always say, life be lifing.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It really does. And I'm so glad you said that because that really leads us into our next question about what inspires you to showing up even on those hard days.
So it's the passion for education, it's passion for teachers, it's faith.
Hmm.
It's the love, just the true love for what I do and what I bring to the table and how I can help people. It's kind of when I was an elementary school teacher. I taught first grade, first, third, fifth. I mean, so many grades. But really that first grade, it's the look in the eye, in our students' eyes when they understand or they unlock the code for reading, right?
Hmm.
I love that. And I kind of thrive off of what that looks like. And it's that win, when we have the win and that constant success of winning
Hmm.
together, I always look for that. So like I said, I'm a cheerleader, and then my passion is just looking for that win where we've kind of unlocked the secret to success, and then we continue moving on.
Yes, and I love how you mentioned about the cheerleading thing because um, no matter what role, but because my background is in education as well, it is hard sometimes when you're doing your very best and you're in those four walls with your students, and they're going to think that you're the greatest. But there are going to be times that you're going to struggle thinking, am I really doing what's in the best interest of my students? And so you need to have that person that's rooting you on. So I'm so glad that you are able to support them in that way and
Mm.
the principals as well.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit and let's talk about self-care. So we know that self-care looks different for every woman. How do you protect your energy when life feels overwhelming?
So one of the things I do, just for my self-care, is I book time. I book time on my calendar for me.
Mm.
And I prioritize that time. One of the things that I was doing in the past, to be honest, as a startup entrepreneur, I would cancel my time and then show up for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the hardest thing I had to kind of stop doing because I would be super exhausted and I wouldn't give my very best when I was with somebody else because I knew this was infringing on my time. But so I would show up for everybody in the world, but not show up for myself, right? When I
Okay.
told myself I was going to write that blog, I said, well, let me cancel this. Let me do this. Somebody wants me to do this. And I would just struggle the next day to write it either the day of or the night before to get it done. And I was just like, this cannot continue happening. So really
Mm-hmm.
blocking time on my day calendar to support and or to do something for me or to relax, to read a good book, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that was the best thing I could have ever done.
Okay, yes. And I was actually taking that note down about the putting the time on the calendar. I think that's very important. And I want to make sure I highlight that on this video because I really feel like if we don't prioritize ourselves, we can't help others. So thank you so much. And we'll be running on that empty. So so what helps? I heard some of the things that you say you do for self-care.
Mhm.
What other things kind of help you reset yourself when you do feel like you're running on empty?
So to reset, so I have these spaces. I like to go away. I like to have my time spaces, meditation.
Okay.
Upstairs in the closet is what I, go and just
Hmm.
meditate to get away from people, and it does help.
Hmm.
But I do like to go away. I like to kind of treat myself. From time to time, I treat myself to breakfast. I like to I love to travel.
Mm-hmm.
I always put something on my calendar to do something different. That kind of sparks, innovation for me,
Mm-hmm.
to do something different. I always like to walk, just to clear the air, the space. Of course, exercise is always good, to get the juju going. But there's so many different things that I love to do, but I love to travel. I love to, go away. And I even love to like travel abroad, and to see, the world from a different lens, different perspectives. That kind of keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends in China, Pakistan, Uganda that I talk to on the regularly, just to kind of put my place in the world and see if what I'm doing is still resonating with the world, and how am I on like local trends or current practices.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad you shared that as well. As one of the contracts I had some years ago, I had the opportunity to be able to coach um, teachers who are teacher candidates that are getting alternative certified. So sometimes that brought me to Japan, Africa,
Hmm.
Singapore.
Yeah.
And I was thinking those classrooms were going to, look different, or it's just going to be something different about what they do than what we do in the United States. And I was just as shocked that it's the same trying to educate students. So I'm so glad how you're talking globally and trying to stay on the trends and making sure you're able to keep supporting and helping people with the best updated practices. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Hmm.
So can you share a time when you had to rise back from a challenge? And I'm sure there are many because like you said, life be lifing. So what anchored you in that season?
So to rise back from a challenge, I think
Mhm.
there are so many challenges as a female entrepreneur. I think what,
Yeah.
but the major challenge for me is, I think, one of these lessons learned is you can't expect somebody um, to do what you want them to do without doing it yourself, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
this idea that, hey, I could just hire somebody to make my cold calls. No problem. I'll just hire somebody, or I'll hire somebody to write my scripts, right? And I think, again, or this was the biggest one. I hire somebody to run my CRM database, my backend channels. Yeah, yeah, no problem, right?
Mhm.
And so I have been burned a lot of times by hiring people without effectively understanding the implications myself,
Mhm.
because they need a journey, they need a track, they need to know what I want from the end perspective. And so I need to kind of get in the weeds and understand something and know something and practice something before I say what I want from it. And I think that was the biggest lesson learned. I've spent a lot of money paying people to kind of do what I thought I wanted, but since I wasn't in the weeds enough, I
Mhm.
got it in the wrong direction or didn't help them understand truly what I wanted. So I
Right.
think coming back from that now, if I want to new, right? So now I'm diving into AI. I have to learn the components of AI before I onboard and train my staff on what I want them to do with AI, right? So
Yeah.
being able to go in the weeds and learn the things, so I can tell other people like kind of what I want from this component. So that was the hardest lesson and financial burden that I put on myself, is, paying kind of for information when I don't know enough myself to to dive into it.
Hmm. Yes, I definitely understand that as well. So thanks you for sharing that.
Mm.
And what are some practices, which I know you've already kind of chose some of the things that you do, but are specific routines or mindsets that help you stay resilient as you are leading and caring for others? Because we know those are several different jobs in itself.
Right. So it's just one of the mindsets that I've kind of adopted is you can't do everything by yourself.
Okay.
You can't
Yeah.
go at this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very hard because it was my baby, right? We've nurtured this thing for years, and we know what we want, but when you talk to people and you're like, well, they can help. Oh, you can help. Okay, well, come on, just like David. David, reached out to me, I want to say 6, 7 years ago. It's been a while. And he said, Cassandra, let me help you. One of his goals was to kind of build that leadership component. And I was like, yes, I would love to build that leadership component because I can't do everything. I can't do, the K-12 principals. I can't do the teachers. I can't do the coaches. I can't do leadership, higher ed. And one of the things he's kind of taken is the higher ed component. So now I'm not only informed with what's going on in higher ed and how it impacts K-12, but
Mhm.
now I'm thinking, gosh, I need more people like David
Mhm.
on my plate. Like I need somebody for, the coaches who's going to support the coaches, if I support the principals. So the being able to get help and get support has been tremendous for me. And I have true partners in tech who like run the back end systems, who I've partnered with, that help me with the video component, that help me store all these video and data, help me erase it after 3 years after we've been partnering with the school. Like true partnership has been like the foundation of my success.
Okay, love that.
So
True
yeah.
partnership. So I
Hmm.
wrote that down too. Has been the foundation of your success. Thank you so much for that. Yes, it is true, and I've found that as well. At first, I was thinking I was more on a journey to my by myself, and then when I was able to start networking, and then able to meet people like you, um, it's just been for me an eye-opening experience because I didn't really know anybody who was on an entrepreneurial journey per se. Most of the people I know are educators or they've worked a career for a certain amount of years. And we know we have to take a lot of risk as entrepreneurs. So I love connecting with people like you that's telling us part of what that journey was, some of the things that you learned from it, and how you're continuing doing that great work that's so needed. So again, I appreciate you sharing that with our
No,
audience.
I love you. I love it because I mean the thing is too, I think the biggest risk I took, being novice is like when I got my first contract and I quit my job, right? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, oh. So I think
Yeah.
even that was like, maybe I should rethought that. But we have faith and we jump on faith, and then we're like, I should have rethought that, So I mean, we're all taking risk, and I appreciate every learning opportunity that I had from the risks I've taken.
Yes, it just helps us to grow out of that comfort zone that's going to help us move more into that growth zone.
Yeah.
So, before we wrap up, I would love to ask you about what advice would you give another woman who feels like she's dimming her light? Whether that's in a relationship or a workplace, or even in our home as a leader. Because sometimes we do dim our lights because we think we may be outshining people, and then we forget that God has given us those talents and gifts to share for a purpose. So, do you have any advice for anyone who might dim their light?
I think, when I was young, I think we all went through this, right? When we were young, we were like, well, I don't want to outperform. I don't want to outshine. Like
Mhm.
we always, it's that double, that two oneness, like looking at ourselves through the lens of others. And we all
Mhm.
have that. We wear the veil, right?
Right.
And so what I guess when I turned 40, I was kind of like, you know what? I'm about to show up as my authentic self in every room. And what I've noticed is I've received so much love and feedback and so much, um, my joy gives energy to others to want to
Mhm.
gravitate towards me. And so when I was, not myself, I always, wore the veil, like, let me, appease, or let me play my role, or let me just be in the space. I think I was invisible.
Mm.
And so, that's another thing we face, being invisible as being a woman of color.
Mhm.
But, when I showed up as myself, I think I received more accolades, more attraction, more, energy, more people wanted to work with me, more people wanted to collaborate with me. And when I would sometimes be my authentic self, I think like the world came to me. Like the world said, finally, finally, Cassandra, you are showing up as your authentic self. Let me show you the possibilities that can happen when you are your authentic self. And I
Mhm.
believe, like I said, when you are truly who you are, people around you gravitate to uh, and help you
Mhm.
become the person you want to be. So after that, I was
Mhm.
like,
Yes.
this is me. This is what I'm gonna be every day. And I think like I love myself for allowing myself to be who I am in all spaces. So
I really love that. It's, I do this again to, connect with women with, different journeys just so that I can learn as well and the audience can learn. But that resonates so much with me, what you just said, because for so long I think we try to I've always said I'm not good at being fake. I mean, people can tell when I'm being fake. I see you nodding. And so it would be hard for me to do that. And so then sometimes I necessarily wouldn't feel I wouldn't be fake, but I just may kind of, back down a little bit.
mhm.
And to hear you say that, just show up as yourself. And then that's what people want. And that's what they are gravitating to. So I just am so glad you mentioned that. Like if I wrote that down as well, because there are a lot of things that I'm hoping to learn from all of these wonderful women that I'm able to invite on to just talk for a little bit so that I can add to my toolbox of things that I'm trying to do to better myself. So again, thank you so much for that. And I do have one more question. If you
Mhm.
could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Hmm. J- Oh, wow,
That
there's
could
so
be a
many
whole
things,
lot.
right? I think it goes back to what we just said. Show up authentically as you. More collaboration happens, more
Mm,
partnerships, more leadership opportunities.
mm,
um
mm,
they just, the world sees you and the world, gives you what you put out. And so when you show up as you bring your questions, concerns to the table, and people come with solutions.
mhm,
And so when you talk about some of the things that you're struggling with or what you're trying to learn, people are like, hey, I have a friend, maybe they can show you this, or hey,
mhm.
I do that. And I'm like, no, do you? So being able to just, show up as yourself and to continue to grow and put yourself out there. I mean, that
Yes.
is what it's all about.
Yes. Nobody knows that you're out there if you don't let them know that you're there. So, yes, you are so on top of that. I want to ask, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up? And then to be able to tell them where they can find you on social
Sure.
media or any other place.
Sure. Just educationalinnovation360.com. All my social links from TikTok, WhatsApp, Instagram, all of them are connected. So definitely reach out to me. We are hosting an online AI training.
Oh,
It's specifically for startup businesses. So if you are interested in kind of learning kind of what are the tools that I use in my startup business, I think this is what I didn't have when I was a startup,
mm,
is somebody that was kind of doing something similar in the same field. And I didn't know what tools would be free or what tools can I use that for people who do not have the capital or the venture capitalists that are funding their companies. And so I'm doing this at, like I said, very low amount at the first to just get
sure.
people excited about AI and how we can kind of do more with less. So
Okay.
yeah, so hopefully you guys kind of go to my website. Or jump
Okay.
in. And like I said, you'll see a lot of promotion around it, and it's happening this month. So
Oh,
hopefully
okay,
you
this
guys
month.
can join
Okay.
us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that because I might be able to pop in there too. I use a lot of AI as well, but may want to see exactly what it is that you do and see if it, if when I compare, is it something that I could be learning from and leverage as well. So I do thank you for sharing that. I will be on your site looking at it and I'll share it with our viewers as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to tell you, thank you for joining us on the Women Spotlight, Her Light, Her Story. I really hope that today's conversation with Cassandra Williams inspired you to keep shining your light and walking confidently in your own story. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and join me next time as we continue to celebrate the incredible journeys of women like you. Until then, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep shining. See you next time, my lady friend. Thanks again, Cassandra.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.